So, I just got off of Twitter, and it turns out that Gina Carano has been fired by Lucasfilm from any future Star Wars projects over her social media activity. Normally, I like to stay out of culture wars. I like my channel to be about escapism. Movies are escapism for me, and so I want my channel to be that, where a lot of different people can join together, talk about things that we love. And so I'm not really interested in the culture wars side of this, but obviously I love the show The Mandalorian. I cover it extensively on my channel. Therefore, this is news that I need to cover here. Be sure to join it down below in the comment section or in the chat with your thoughts on this story. Please try not to turn toxic. Listen to where other people are coming from. Understand their perspective before you just immediately assume things about them. As I go into this, I'm going to try and give as fair of a take and a read on things as I can and be as informative without getting too specific on this, because this has been kind of a long time of brewing. So let's dive into the article over on The Hollywood Reporter, and basically kicks off. Lucasfilm put out a statement saying Gina Carano is not currently employed by Lucasfilm and there are no plans for her to be in future projects. Lucasfilm officially stated this. This isn't rumor mill. There's been months and months of rumors about her being fired. This is a statement by Lucasfilm. She is no longer employed. So kind of continuing, what exactly caused this? Basically, over the last year, she's very vocal on social media about her political beliefs, and this has gotten her in a whole lot of online fights with people. And so she said things not necessarily supporting wearing masks. She over kind of putting pronouns in your bio, she kind of put droid speak in there, which a lot of people took as making fun of trans people. And so she just did a lot of stuff that stepped on a whole lot of toes. And so what happened to spark this? Oh, I punched my mic. I'm getting so excited. This particular event, this is what the article reads: Gina Carano will not be returning to The Mandalorian or to the Star Wars galaxy after sharing a post on social media inferring that being a Republican today is being Jewish, same as being Jewish during the Holocaust. So basically, she made some comments on social media tying certain events of right now and being silenced to the Holocaust, which a lot of people take as very, very inflammatory language. Thus, eventually, it got to the point in time where Lucasfilm said, this is too much trouble, and she got fired. Kind of continues on down through this. According to some sources, they've been looking for reasons to fire her for 2 months, and today was the final straw. And then it says this: according to sources, Lucasfilm planned to unveil Carano as the star of her own show during a December investors meeting presentation, but scrapped those plans following her November tweets. So basically, at the investor meeting 2 months ago, they announced an upcoming Rangers of the New Republic show, and apparently their plan was to announce her as the star of that, and then she got on social media, said a bunch of stuff that just stepped on a few too many toes, and they're like, we definitely can't comfortably announce that. Jump forward to now, and she makes this kind of comment about comparing, contrasting modern day people on the right to Jews during the Holocaust and right before the Holocaust. And they didn't like that very much and decided that they would fire her. So where to begin on all of this? What to say about all of it? Like I said before, I'm trying to give as fair of a take on this. I'm not interested in the culture wars and fighting and any of that stuff. I just want a reasonable take on a situation that's unfolded. Given my background, I've been a fan of Gina Carano for about 13 years now. She was on the revival of American Gladiators back 13 years ago, back in 2008. And I grew up watching American Gladiators, so when they brought it back, It was right after I was been married for about a year, and so some of my fond memories of the first couple of years of my marriage was watching American Gladiators, and our favorite gladiator on the show was Gina Carano as Crush. And then a couple years after that, she started to kind of get an acting career. Not the best thespian, but kind of a fun personality. So when she was announced on Star Wars, I was very excited to see what they were going to do with the character. Then on The Mandalorian, I've been a fan of her character, and just kind of a nice little spice addition on the show. So over the last year, as more and more on Twitter, people have been demanding that she get fired. They're constantly, literally this whole last year, hashtag fire Gina Carano. Every time a new female character is introduced, they're like, this is what it should be done right. And all these people, they should have hired Michelle Rodriguez from the beginning. All such stuff like that constantly. I've normally stayed out of it simply because I just don't want to get into culture wars. And some of the previous things she said, I can see why it stepped on toes, but it didn't necessarily, if they chose to fire or not, I'm not in the conversations knowing what they're saying with her, and so I didn't know what to think about it. Seeing what she messaged out today, as soon as you start bringing up the Holocaust, that's pretty strong language. So what is my take on her getting fired? If you play with matches, you get burned. if you keep poking the hornet's nest, you're going to get yourself in trouble. And almost certainly behind the scenes, they've been telling her, well, kind of cool it. And apparently her take would be, hey, you're silencing me for my political views. And I think to some extent, there's a side to that that's kind of true. And then there's a side to it that, teachers get in trouble if they just post anything. For any job, any normal job, if you go out and tweet things that your company doesn't think you should be tweeting, you can get in trouble for that. Everybody with a brain that's over the age of 18 knows you have to be careful with what you post on social media because you might not be able to get a job in the future over it. You have to think about these things. It can get you in a lot of trouble. But I think what a lot of people see is that she seems to be on the right, and every time she says something dumb, gets in trouble for it, and there's a perception that a bunch of people on the left say a bunch of crazy dumb things and don't get in trouble for it. My take would be actors, writers for shows, directors should be held to the same level as anyone at any normal job. That you represent a company. You represent who you work for in a certain sense, as certainly as actors, as faces of a television show, of the product for these major corporations. You represent them, and you shouldn't be allowed to say crazy, of course there should be consequences if you say totally insane things. It's tough, though. Where do you draw the line between we disagree on policies and you're saying crazy things? When you bring up the Holocaust, that's getting off. You're really going into some dangerous space there. And if she's been doing this for months and they've been warning her for months and she keeps heading down the path, she's picking fights. That she's a fighter. Was an MMA fighter. She's not one to back down. And it seems like that's what's happening here is that they probably warned her repeatedly over a long period of time of hey, could you not be so inflammatory on the internet? Twitter hates you. That's a lot of people. And if they hate you, that doesn't sit well with our show. Could you please not say so many things? And she kept heading down that path. So I've seen some people in the comments right before I started this, is this just cancel culture run amok? I would say no, it's not quite the same thing because it's not looking up some any job. Like I said, repeat, any job, you can be held accountable for saying really bad, nasty things on the internet. Everyone else has to deal with that. The fact that Hollywood doesn't, because their actors are worth so much to them, they get away with so much. And apparently she didn't have enough clout to get away with certain things. But it's not quite the same thing. And it's people well, this is like James Gunn all over again. No, James Gunn made some bad jokes 10 years ago that were brought back up. This is someone kind of continuing down a path currently right now. And if your boss says, hey, could you cool it on really inflammatory stuff, and you keep heading down that path, that's not the same thing categorically at all as 10 years ago you made some really nasty jokes and then someone found them later on and brought them back up. That they're not the same thing. Some other people mentioned like Chris Pratt is next. Chris Pratt doesn't actually say inflammatory things though. Twitter's obsession with him is weird. Twitter's hatred of him is kind of very confusing to me. I'm not quite sure where it's coming from. I don't get it because none of it's based on things he's actually said really. It's more implication and what he hasn't said, reading between the lines, guilt by association because his church is connected to this church that did this thing 15 years ago. But that's not, once again, not the same thing as she tweeted things 6 months ago, 5 months ago, 4 months ago, 3 months ago, 2 months ago, 1 month ago, and today that her boss wasn't happy about. Those aren't quite the same thing. So I understand completely why Lucasfilm would not want to have someone starring in a show, one of their shows, that's comparing things to the Holocaust this way. But I think there's the flip side to it. I think it's totally fair if you're someone that's kind of more on the right and you kind of look at it and you're like, wait, I look at all these people that are saying crazy stuff on the left. Why aren't they getting fired? See people on the left associated with Lucasfilm picking fights with fans. I don't remember. What was the, I was about to say Pedro Pascal, but it's not him. That's the star of the show. Was it Pablo, the guy that's over the story group or something like that like he insulted the guy from, I think it's Star Wars Theory for crying at the end of the big cameo at the end of season 2 of The Mandalorian. And he like made fun of him. Like, I think all of this stuff, all the social media activity of people should be fairly accounted for. And when you see stuff like that, like all of them should be held accountable for it. If like you have to act like a grown-up. And if you say incendiary things on the internet, there are consequences, but far too many people in actors, writers, directors get away with too much stuff currently. Everyone needs to tone it down on Twitter. Almost everyone does. And that's why I try to stay out of this stuff, because we don't need more people pouring gasoline on the fire of all the culture wars and everything. We need to calm down a little bit. And so, do I blame Lucasfilm for firing Gina Carano? No, I get it. Months and months and months of her saying things that they didn't really like. And then all after her not backing down, being like, yeah, right now it's like being a Jew in Europe in the 30s. It's not. It is not. I get it. But I think a lot more people also need to be held accountable for what they're saying. Both sides. That's I think where a lot of people are frustrated in this. If both sides were being held accountable, it would be much easier to be like, yeah, Holocaust comparisons, that's not good. That's not very wise. But it doesn't feel like we're getting balance in a lot of this. And therefore, people get frustrated with it. So, it's tough when it comes to like, I'm not for someone said one dumb thing, they apologized, but they still got fired. I'm not for any of that. But if you're actively doing something for a continued period of time and don't back down when your boss is like, hey, you shouldn't keep doing this, that's not the same thing as being canceled for one mistake. It's just not the same thing. I tell you, I believe so much in grace and forgiveness. I was a pastor that was an alcoholic and almost shipwrecked my life over it. And my friends forgave me. My wife forgave me. I've been extended so much grace and now get to talk about movies and TV for a living. Right now, this is work for me. This is amazing that this is my job. I've been extended so much grace and forgiveness. I'm all for that. But if you're actively, continually engaging in a behavior that your employer does not want you to engage in, that's when you get fired. That's when you lose your job. So, what's my stance on it? I get why it happened. I liked the character. I like Gina Carano as a personality. So it's disappointing she's gone, but I get it. I wish that more people were held accountable. It's very frustrating to see how much... I think normal people get very confused when we look at so much of this stuff because it seems like... I don't know, it just seems like certain people just get away with so much craziness and other people get fired for less. that contradiction, I think, is totally a valid thing for people to be frustrated and confused by. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that making world comparisons to the Holocaust is a reasonable and fair thing to do. So if you're tuning in a little bit late into this, basically she was fired over a year's worth of comments on social media and kept heading down that path, made a comparison to World War II, and that was too far for them. It is what it is. I imagine Twitter right now is celebrating, shooting off fireworks, and at the same time while I'm making this video, we got 1,000 other people making videos defending her. You can't just say anything on the internet without consequences. Too many actors do get to do that. That's not a good thing. That's not good. When you leverage your platform to say crazy, which you all can list 1,000 celebrities that do that. You just pick the ones on the other side from where you're at. You can think of a ton of people leveraging their platform to say crazy. That eventually has consequences. So there you have it. That's kind of my take on it. Hopefully that's fair enough, balanced enough of a take on it. I get why it happened. Kind of disappointed it happened. Totally understand. A lot more people should be held accountable like this. A lot more people say crazy stuff and don't have any repercussions, and that's not good. It keeps people saying crazy. Let me know what you think down below in the comment section. Thank you guys for tuning in on the live stream here. Please, please, please don't go into toxic realm. Don't pick fights with each other. Listen, understand where people are coming from. There's a reason that one group of people look at this and they just see that she's this angry, intolerant bigot. And there's a reason that a group of people feel like they're being silenced on social media. Understand where other people are coming from. Listen just as much as you share where you're coming from. Actually, listen more than you're sharing where other people are coming from. Understand. Find bridges. And if you don't understand someone's perspective, probably aren't at a point in time where you should start arguing with them yet. So I'm sure the comment section is going to be very interesting on this one. See you guys tomorrow. I've got a Hannibal Lecter ranking coming tomorrow afternoon. So hopefully that won't be as divisive as this video is almost certainly going to be. Talk to you later.